Across modern landscapes, creeping urban grids are continuously isolating vital biological sanctuary zones. Small patches of green are consistently boxed in by infrastructure. These isolated nature reserves, no matter how well protected internally, inevitably fail. Without physical connectivity to larger ecological networks, wildlife populations within them stagnate and collapse. The Sidmouth Valley in Devon has emerged as a national exemplar for solving this geographic fragmentation. To achieve true valley-wide biodiversity, planners here realized they had to abandon traditional single-agency management strategies. Relying on one local government or one conservation group to manage a single plot of land wouldn't work. Instead, the Sid Valley model relies on a decentralized, site-specific aggregation of interventions. It operates across entirely different land tenure types, from public parks to private manors. Sustainable peri-urban ecology requires engineering a coordinated matrix across public, private, and municipal borders. We start on the geography of the valley's western slopes, home to two adjacent but distinctly managed public reserves, Highfield Meadow and the Knapp. Despite their proximity, their access strategies are highly specialized. Highfield operates under a restricted sanctuary status to protect easily disturbed wildlife, while the Knapp is engineered for quiet public recreation with an active network of mown paths. Their shared baseline management tool is conservation grazing. Leasing the land to local farmers for seasonal livestock grazing prevents coarse, aggressive grasses from dominating the meadows. This split-screen chart illustrates why grazing outperforms a uniform mechanical cut. On the right, a standard mower leaves a flat, homogeneous surface. On the left, seasonal livestock create uneven, varying grass heights, which the data shows directly correlates to a significantly higher insect biomass. Establishing insect populations is only the first step. To diversify the meadow canopy further, managers at the Knapp have to implement specific botanical interventions. They achieve this through the targeted deployment of a native plant known as yellow rattle. This diagram shows the semi-parasitic mechanism underground. Yellow rattle roots latch onto aggressive grass root systems and physically siphon nutrients away. Weakening these dominant grasses clears critical space in the canopy, allowing diverse forbs like cowslips and field scabious to successfully establish. Maintaining a public nature reserve is an act of highly active species manipulation. Passively leaving the land untouched would simply allow a few dominant species to choke out the rest. Moving away from the public slopes, we encounter historic private estates like Balfour Manor and Knowle Park, which present a completely different set of land use conditions. These closed-off sites pose a baseline regulatory challenge. They are governed by strict heritage regulations and blanket tree preservation orders, which dictate exactly what property owners can and cannot touch. Adding to this complexity, the Sid Valley Neighborhood Plan mandates a strict 20% biodiversity net gain on any private development within these estates. To meet these strict ecological targets on mature, protected heritage trees, estate managers rely on a specialized arboricultural strategy called veteranisation. This architectural rendering of a Monterey pine illustrates veteranisation. Proactive, targeted cuts mimicking natural aging to create deliberate deadwood. This provides critical habitats for specialized fungi and rare wood-boring beetles. This technique allows private owners to meet legal requirements for tree safety while simultaneously preserving essential ecological niches. On the ground level, these private estates utilize a psychological management concept known as cues to care. By maintaining highly manicured paths around intentionally wilded meadow sections, managers prevent the social perception of neglect by estate owners and their neighbors. The wildness looks intentional, not abandoned. On private heritage land, deep ecological recovery operates best when carefully disguised within historically acceptable aesthetics and strict regulatory frameworks. The municipal sector requires yet another approach. Sidmouth Cemetery is currently transitioning out of a standard high-maintenance civic model. Driven by community volunteer groups and the district council, this highly trafficked public space is adopting the living churchyard framework. Operating under a mandate to be managed but not manicured, the ground staff implement tiered mowing regimes. This allows wildflower seed cycles to complete entirely in non-active burial zones without disrupting public access. The conservation effort extends past botanical management into the structural preservation of the site's Victorian headstones. Under the new protocols, there is a strict ban on using chemical cleaners and high-pressure washing on these historical monuments. This microscopic cross-section demonstrates why. High-pressure washing strips away a complex, multi-layered structural network, destroying delicate vertical microhabitats that support rare lichen and silky wall feather moss. Successful municipal biodiversity often relies on passive preservation. Mandating the cessation of destructive maintenance allows these microhabitats to naturally establish themselves over decades. Zooming out to a macro perspective of the valley, a critical problem remains: the geographic isolation of these individual sites. Engineered nodes, whether they are public meadows, private estates, or tiered cemeteries, are ecologically useless without functional transit routes between them. To bridge these gaps, large estate owners adhere to an informal but strictly maintained agreement known as the Dark Corridors Initiative. The operational metric of this agreement is highly specific. Nocturnal property lighting must be restricted to levels below 0.5 lux. This 3D topographical math illustrates the effect. Dipping below 0.5 lux creates safe, continuous flight paths for migrating horseshoe bats. This threshold successfully links the eastern private estates directly to the western ridges, binding the habitats together. Below the aerial transit lines sits the aquatic infrastructure, centered on Bickwell Brook, which operates as the valley's living laboratory. The dynamic flow of a natural brook requires continuous, rapid movement. This unblocked flow is essential for the migration of eels and small fish. Protecting this route requires an active citizen science backbone. Volunteers utilize highly sensitive back-to-quick sensors to monitor water quality and identify upstream pollution in real time. Continuous, aggressively monitored transit corridors form the true infrastructure of a regional ecosystem. They validate and connect every micro-intervention at the individual nodes. Looking at the fully integrated Sid Valley system, we see all these tenures and corridors functioning simultaneously as a single unified engine. This ecosystem functions precisely because its management is legally and practically fragmented across entirely different authorities and property lines. It relies on drastically different tools deployed across the matrix, combining parasitic botanical seeding, arboricultural veteranisation, and structural heritage conservation. True nature recovery in heavily human-altered landscapes is no longer about reverting land to untouched, pristine wilderness. Ecological survival today demands highly technical, continuous, and integrated management, explicitly tailored to every conceivable land designation.